Okay, we'd like to say shalom to all the brothers and sisters here for class. We thank you for your presence. We're going into a short lesson because we do have a feast and the food is preparing. As a matter of fact, the food is prepared and we're going to have some music, festivities, and just a good gathering tonight. And we hope that this is being done. This will get done throughout the four corners of the earth. We understand that it's an issue with people who are following us through the internet that don't have a gathering in your respective areas, but you can still serve the Most High in your home amongst your family nonetheless. And understand that tonight is a high holy night, the feast of dedications. And we're going to go into that and how we can relate that to what we're dealing with and what we're going through as a people today. Some people might ask out there, how did we come to such a pass where the point where we are a people void of understanding, void of a nation, void of customs and laws? What happened to the children of Israel? Well, this particular short lesson we're about to go into on the Feast of Dedications will show all of you and remind us how we come to such a pass as a people, and how the Gentiles incrementally took us down to the point where we had no understanding. And it started off at a key point. In our academy, we go through a lesson called the breaking down of the four beasts of Daniel's that you read in Daniel 7. And we just went through that a few weeks ago. That shows all empires, the Gentile empires that would rule in the earth before the coming of our Lord and Savior Christ, and before the rise of our people, the children of Israel. Now, through these four empires, Israel would begin to lose their stronghold, which is Jerusalem or Israel. And that's how we come to a pass. Now, what do this particular feast, how does that relate to those particular beasts? Well, one of the beasts led to the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, and which is the third beast under Alexander the Greek. There was a wicked one that came out of them that led to the Roman Empire. His name was Antiochus Epiphanes. And when you read in the scriptures, out of all the empires, it was the Idumean, European, what we would call the European Empire today, the Greeks, had a strong hand in implementing laws that would have us forget our laws and our God. They began to destroy our temple and set up new gods and new worships in the temples. Okay, so as we were incrementally taken down, they also instituted customs to the point where we look at today, we ask, where do these customs come from? How are we celebrating these pagan days when we were once Israel? Well, brothers and sisters, you're going to find out today. And there was a memorial given for this day when the Judas Maccabean brothers, Judas and the Maccabean brothers began to rebuild the temple that were destroyed by the Edomites or the Greeks / going into Romans. Okay, now the reason the Most High said use this as a memorial so that we can remember what we were before the Gentiles destroyed us. Okay, now I thank the Most High that we're at a point now where we can bring out this information right in the midst of the Gentiles' holy days or holidays, the satanic holidays. Because, brothers and sisters, this is what we really need to be focused on or following, opposed to Christmas. If we understood what these holy days meant to us personally, there's not a person out there, especially of our people, who would celebrate Christmas going forward. All right? So, before you go there, let's go into Jeremiah to show us where it says that we would discontinue from our heritage that the Most High has given us.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 17,
Verse 4.
verse 4.
Yeah.
And thou,
And thou,
even thyself,
even thyself, God is speaking to his people, the children of Israel, even thyself
shalt discontinue from thine heritage
shall discontinue from thine heritage
that I gave thee.
that the Most High gave thee. So the real children of Israel would lose their heritage, which is their worships, their customs. Read.
And I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not.
So this was a punishment given to our forefathers, that he would cause the children of Israel to do what?
And I will cause thee to serve thine
To
enemies
serve thine enemies
in the land which thou knowest not.
in a land which we knew not. Now at that time, there was no such land as America. Our forefathers knew of the land of Japheth. Our forefathers knew of the land of Ham. Our forefathers knew of the land of Shem. But the only land our forefathers had no foreknowledge of was the new land that would be founded called America. In scriptures, it's called Arzareth. So the Most High says, for our disobedience, for breaking his law, we would have to go through this punishment, which is captivity. Read.
For ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which shall burn forever.
See that? Because we began to turn to the Gentiles and worship their gods, which at the apex or at the pinnacle of all of these religions and worships is Satan himself. We began to worship Satan. So the Most High said, well, if you want to serve Satan, a lesser god, then I'm going to take your heritage that you disrespect from you and have your children serve Satan and the Gentile nations who are serving Satan. That's how we as a people have come to such a pass. But thank the Most High for Yeshua, which is Christ, the Savior. Through the Holy Spirit, he would lead us back to understand our true heritage so that we could get back what we lost, which is rulership, power, dominion over the earth and all the nations. Now, what is this day about this evening when the sun go down in some of your areas? It's about a dedication where our people fought to establish the temple that was destroyed by the Gentiles. Let's go into the book of Maccabees, the first chapter. And the Maccabees is 14 books that were a part of the original 1611 Bible that the Western world churches no longer respect. And see, that's why they took the books out. They have no respect for our record. Now, predominantly the minority churches over the earth, they, especially black people, I'm going to say, in America and other places, you need these particular books because these books link you to your fall so that we can understand from whence we fell. So this is key history that fills in the blanks. Keep in mind, brothers and sisters, our history didn't start with slave ships. Okay, slave ships is a curse due to the breaking of a law that's written up in Deuteronomy 28, breaking God's law. So slave ships is a result. It's not a beginning history. Okay. So what happened before the slave ships? Why did the Most High send the slave ships against us? Well, we're going to show you. What was there before the slave ships? Let's go there. Let's go into the book of Maccabees, the first chapter, and read like the 9th and 10th verse, right?
First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 9.
Yes.
And after his death, they all put on crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years. And evils were multiplied in the earth.
Now, this is speaking of right after Alexander the Greek, which is about 333 BC. Alexander died earlier, around the age of 33, and his kingdom was split under his 4 generals. And from that time going forward, after the Greeks were ruling, evils began to multiply in the earth. Why? Because they began to teach their evil customs and make it law. Okay, it was okay to eat anything you want. It was okay to sleep with anyone you wanted. Pedophilia, you name it, evil, wickedness, deception, thievery, killing became a mainstay amongst the Greeks. And every place they conquered, they would bring these sadistic practices, which would morally decay a nation. Therefore, by default, giving them the power over the nations, being the chief hierarchy under Satan, the Edomites. So this is what gave them power. If they can demoralize a society, by default, they gain power over it. Right? I'm going to show you some of the things Antiochus did to us. Right after these four generals under Alexander the Greek, one wicked, more wicked than Alexander, arose out of their root. Now these are Edomites. Okay? Pure blood Edomites. Linked directly to families today, such as the Queen Elizabeth, the Bushes, the Rothschilds, the Jewish powers that rule the earth today. Read.
Verse 10. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus surnamed Epiphanes.
Antiochus surnamed Epiphanes. Now, mind you, when Antiochus came on the scene, we're talking about between 170, 168, around that time period. Keep in mind, the Greeks had over 100 years to spread their wickedness all over the earth, including the Ptolemies that took over parts of Egypt and made Egypt pay tribute to Grecians. So when you look at white people in history, when I say in particular white people that ruled over parts of Egypt, that's where that history comes from. They weren't the original people from ancient Egypt. Okay? So now this is where you find now European worships and European architect and all that in Egypt. It came from the rulership of the Ptolemies going into Egypt. These are Grecians. Now they'll tell us that they were always European. Well, we know that's not true. When you go into the book of the Maccabees, it shows you when the Europeans began to conquer parts of Egypt and set up their faces in Egypt as the people, opposed to the people that were there thousands of years before the Ptolemies. And I'm saying this not to make it a black or white thing, because just to clear up why you will find European images in high positions and high places in Egypt today. They use that argument to say that Egyptians were always white. No. That happened under the Greeks. And guess what? It wasn't just Alexander and his guys. Ptolemy finished. Antiochus Epiphanes finished what the Ptolemies couldn't do, leading into the Roman Empire. Listen to this clearly. Read.
Verse 10. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus surnamed Epiphanes,
surnamed Epiphanes,
son of Antiochus the king, who had been in hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks.
So this is what you will call the tail end of the Greek Empire going into the Roman Empire here. Read.
11. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen.
Now, see that? So now the leaders of Israel, our people, seeing Antiochus in power, who's willing to bribe the leaders of our people. They say, listen, our people have fallen anyway. We're going to lose anyway. So let's compromise. See? Like your Jesse Jacksons today. Okay? Like your so-called Reverend Al Sharptons today. Let us compromise with the heathen. What did they say? Read.
Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us.
Go ahead. Now, these were not just normal people. looking to make this pact with the devil. These were influential, powerful men of our people who chose to say, you know what, instead of our holy days, let's pay homage to their gods. You have to realize what this is when you're celebrating holidays, brothers and sisters. When you're celebrating holidays, you are acknowledging a God and paying homage to the people's God that rule you. Okay? So in exchange, somebody close the door. So the payment that these Gentile powers have, the payment they have for relaying all rulership of their servants to gods, they receive power. If they can get you to serve Christmas, that empowers them and put these particular people in high standings with their God. Therefore, they gain more power. They get more money. They get more prestige. It's an exchange. I'll have my servant serve you if you allow my power to sustain. That's how it works. Think about it, brothers and sisters. I'm going to go into that Christmas thing in one moment. But think about that. Why do you celebrate Christmas? Why is it that only one time a year they make you feel worth anything? They want everyone to participate. Why? So here it is, our people saying, listen, we're going to ignore our holy days in Leviticus 23. And we're going to get with the heathen for financial gain. Listen to this clearly. Read.
Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us.
Go ahead.
For since we departed from them,
we have had
much sorrow.
We have had much sorrow.
So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen.
So they went to the Gentiles and received a permit or a license to do after the ordinance of the heathen. Read.
14. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen.
Now this is speaking of the Olympics. The Olympics is an ancient game of the gods. See that continual torch they have from year to year that they burn, the fire that never go out, which represents the original fire or the illuminate ones from Lucifer or Mount Olympus. That's a fire that's been burning since they've been ruling in the past. And they have that torch up till this day. That fire never went out. So what did they do? They initiate. The only people that weren't a part of these games, brothers and sisters, were our people. All the Gentiles participated in the games to the gods, which is the Olympics, except us. We understood they were games to the gods. But you know they wanted to initiate us based on our physical prowess. So when we got into the Olympics, that no one could beat the Grecians and Romans because we were initiated into it. See? So they wanted us, we ran faster, we were stronger, and there was no steroids back then. So the Grecians they needed us in their games to the gods. See? Read.
15. And made themselves uncircumcised.
And we made ourselves uncircumcised.
And forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathen.
Exactly. So instead of our children getting circumcised on the 8th day, we began to operate like the heathen and say, well, let's not circumcise our children. And you know what? It's our men, not our children, but our man child. There's no such thing as a female circumcision. Okay. Now, mind you, even if you look at today, they make people believe that circumcision, oh, that's barbaric. Oh, how can you give that child that pain? They put that out there because they know that that's a law given to Abraham's seed. That's a recognition there. That's a nation recognizer. See? Read.
and were sold to do mischief.
And was sold to do evil. Read.
16. Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have dominion of 2 realms.
Go ahead.
Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots
See that?
and elephants and horsemen, and a great navy. And he made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him.
Now, mind you, brothers, this Ptolemy is not a black king over Egypt. This is a Grecian. The Ptolemies is a Grecian line that gained power over Egypt after Alexander the Greek died. Okay, and that's why when they started conquering Egypt, they named the whole area of Egypt after Alexander, which is Alexandria, which was in times past in scriptures. Check this out. Goshen was in Alexandria. Goshen was where the children of Israel lived during the time of Joseph, when we first went into Egypt. So all the areas that we lived in, they started renaming. Okay, we'll call that Alexandria. See? So they're looking to cover all of our existence, even our existence from the beginning in Egypt. Read.
18. And made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled.
Go ahead.
And many were wounded to death. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof.
So he took Egypt. He took Egypt over. Now there's more European intrusion in Egypt now. Now what we're talking about is modern Egypt. If you go into Egypt today, you will see it ran over by Grecians, Ishmaelites. But when you go into certain poor areas, you'll see the Nubians, you'll see the blacks in certain areas. And they'll tell you what, yeah, we were the original people, but they took us over. The same way you will go into America and see Indians on reservations. See? Read.
20. And after that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Israel in Jerusalem with a great multitude.
Now he took a great multitude once he gained more power with his army, aligned with the army that Ptolemy had in Egypt, and say, you know what? Let's go into Israel now. Let's go take Israel. Okay? Now this is a very short class. I'm just trying to give you the history on how we came to such a pass and what this holy day, the Feast of Dedication, means. And why the Most High said, keep this as a holy memorial, even though it's not written in Leviticus 23 as one of the original holy days. You understand? But keep in mind, this memorial happened after that time. So this holy day wouldn't be in Leviticus 23. All right? So now, let's go into the book of the Josephus. We in Jewish Antiquities, book 12, chapter 6. Now, this is going to go into detail, to tell you exactly what Antiochus did in quite detail here when they went into the land. Now, mind you, we're going to read a few things, but one key thing they did was they started sacrificing swine or pig's flesh on the Most High's altar when they went into the land in Maccabees, knowing that there's no unclean animal can be sacrificed to the God of Israel. Swine is the most abominable, dirty, the most stinking and dirty animal on earth, and it was made that way for a reason. Okay, it's the garbage disposal of the earth. It's what keeps the earth clean. It dies of its own filth. So you have to realize the mindset behind. But first they had to begin to compromise the hierarchy of the Jews. Now check out how this happened systematically. Right? Even when our people compromised with the Grecians, they were still looking to take us down. Even though we were compromising with them, even though we were already broken as a people, they still, that wasn't enough for them. See, because they understood who we were, and we understood to some degree who they were. We are Jacob and they are Esau. They couldn't let us stand. See? So let's go into chapter 6. Read that.
Paragraph 1.
Go ahead.
Now at this time there was one whose name was Mattathias, who dwelt at Modin, the son of John, the son of Simeon, the son of Asmoneus, a priest of the order of Jorib, and a citizen of Jerusalem. He had 5 sons, John, who was called Gaddis, and Simon, who was called Matthias, and Judas, who was called Maccabeus, and Eleazar, who was called Aaron,
Go ahead.
and Jonathan, who was called Aphus. Now this Mattathias lamented to the children the sad state of their affairs, and the ravage made in the city, and the plundering of the temple, and the calamities the multitude were under. And he told them that it was better for them to die for the laws of their country than to live so ingloriously as they did then. But then those that appointed the king were come to Modin, that they might compel the Jews to do what they were commanded, and to ask those that were there to offer sacrifices as the king had commanded.
What sacrifices? Now check this out. The priest said it's better to die than to follow their customs, which are their holy days and their rituals. See, the greatest sign of a people in captivity or servitude is when they serve the holy days of their captors. See, that's the sign they know that their stronghold is still on a particular nation. So when they see you begin to say, well, I don't celebrate Christmas, I don't celebrate, they watch you intently because they know you that programming is being broken from you. And it have to be something outside of their programming that have led you to such understanding. They'd rather you say, well, are you a Muslim? They want it to be something that they can relate to, that they know it's still under their gods. We be like, no, I'm not a Muslim. Well, I don't understand it. You don't celebrate Christmas? Well, no. Well, what are you? What are you? You notice how they act as if you came from another planet, as they claim, or some place from space. You must be from some. Everyone here is celebrating Christmas. So what? They don't understand it because why? See, because that's the norm. That's the programming. You must be from someplace else if you're not programmed. See? So they'd rather move you out of the way altogether so that you don't influence others, because that's what gives these nations their power. If all of our people all at once say, listen, we're not dealing with it no more, all the power would fall from your leaders, because their gods would be at odds with them. They're not doing their job. Their job is to lead us to serve the gods. See? Read.
They desired that Mattathias, a person of great character among them, both on other accounts, and particularly on account of such a numerous and so deserving a family of children, would begin the sacrifice, because his fellow citizens would follow his example, and because such a procedure would make him honored by the king.
So they had one respected man whom they knew if he did it, then everyone else would. See? But I'm glad we're bringing this up to show you that not all of Israel compromised with this mess. See? The example I can give you just for modern day, if we're just going to look at the civil rights movement just as an example. You had, during that time, you had the Martin Luther Kings of the world, and you had the Malcolm X's of the world. Okay? Now, the reason why, even though Martin Luther King realized he was compromised at the very end, the reason that they could use him the way they needed is because there was some level of compromise. They couldn't use Malcolm at all. See? So how could they get in? They would send certain people to try to compromise him, and there was no compromise. He was a family man. He did all the right things, and he knew who not to make a covenant with. He could be cordial with everyone, but he knew, I can't make a covenant with you. You having the influence and power to take me down. I can't make that type of covenant. I'm talking about how they had these different groups, like the NAACP and all these other groups who were joined to the Jewish Defense League and all these other people. He couldn't do it. By the same token, to show you there's nothing new under the sun, it's the same program. They was trying to see amongst our people back during Antiochus' time who would compromise. What people in high stature would say, well, you know what? The Most High is still going to be with us. He's not going to, we can still do this or do that. They wanted to see who could compromise, knowing that if they can divide any of us, then they can destroy us all. That's why Christ told us, a nation divided against itself, a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. See? Read.
But Mattathias said he would not do it.
Mattathias said, no, I'm not going to compromise my people and my position. I'm not going to do it, no. So what happened? Read.
And that if all other nations would obey the commands of Antiochus, either out of fear or to please him, yet would not he or his sons leave the religious worship of their country. But as soon as he had ended his speech...
So you see, now the war is what religion you're going to follow, see? What religion you would choose. Will you stay with your God in your holy days, or you follow the gods of the Grecians? You notice, brothers and sisters, every place Rome take down, or the Gentiles take down, they do what? They set up a hospital, which is their eugenics program, and ways of spreading their disease. And what? A church. Not to serve the people, to pay homage, to give honor to the God who allowed them to take over that nation. That's what churches are. They're temples to the gods in payment. See? Read.
But as soon as he had ended his speech, there came one of the Jews into the midst of them, and sacrificed as Antiochus had commanded.
See that? But one of the Jews said, well, listen, I'm not going down with y'all guys. I got a family. You hear that all the time. Somebody believe that because you have a family, you can break the ranks of your own people. Well, I got to take care of my family. Read.
At the which Mattathias had great indignation, and ran upon him violently with his sons, who had swords with them, and killed both the man himself that sacrificed, and Apelles, the king's general.
So the priest and his sons took up swords. To show you, let me tell you, brothers and sisters, make this clear. The worship of holy days is deep. I'm talking about the holidays and all that. It's on a high level. He's like, man, we're going to sacrifice like Antiochus. But they knew that would mean war, but they did it anyway. See? Read.
Who compelled them to sacrifice with a few of his soldiers.
Now, what were they sacrificing? Pigs. This guy bringing a pig up into the Most High's altar. Read.
He also overthrew the idol altar and cried out, if, said he, anyone be zealous for the laws of his country and for the worship of God, let him follow me.
Let him follow me. Now, because why? Antiochus also erected a temple resembling himself called Zeus, but it looked like Antiochus. They put that up into the temple too. See, they leave images of themselves every place they go to show you who you're worshiping. Same way you look in a lot of these churches, you see Cesar Borgia as Jesus Christ, which is really, when you look at the words, Zeus or the son of Zeus. These things are patterned after the fall of Jerusalem, how we fell as a people. Antiochus, the wicked root. Read.
And when he had said this, he hurried into the desert with his sons, and left all his substance in the village. And many others did the same also, and fled with their children and wives into the desert, and dwelt in caves. And when the king's generals heard this, they took all the forces they then had in the citadel at Jerusalem, and pursued the Jews into the desert. And when they had overtaken them, they in the first place tried to persuade them to repent, and to choose what was most for their advantage, and not to put them to the necessity of using them according to the law of war. But when they would not comply with their persuasions, but continued to be of a different mind, they fought against them on the Sabbath day, and they burnt them as they were in the caves, without resistance, and without so much as stopping up the entrances of the caves.
They knew that it was against the law for us to actually war on the Sabbath. So they found out where we were, and they waited to the Sabbath to come up against us. And we were hiding in caves. And what did they do? They cremated and burned us in the caves. Why? Because we didn't compromise. Because mind you, they didn't look to war with them on a physical level first. The psychological war is more effective. See, if you can war with someone psychologically and make them compromise, then not only do you have them, you have their children and the generations after them. So they would rather have it that way. So they didn't immediately go to kill these brothers and sisters who, after they went against the command, they fled into the desert. Immediately they say, listen, why don't y'all just come back and do it? We're not going to kill you. Why? Because the priest didn't kill none of Antiochus' people. He put in a wedge that allowed us to kill each other. So, yeah, you killed a few of your people, but look, if you come back and compromise with us, we'll spare you and your family. See? Read.
And they avoided to defend themselves on that day, because they were not willing to break in upon the honor they owed to the Sabbath, even in such distresses, for our law requires that we rest upon that day.
Go ahead.
There were about 1,000 with their wives and children.
There was 1,000 with their wives and children
who were smothered and died in these caves. But many of those that escaped joined themselves to Mattathias, and appointed him to be their ruler, who taught them to fight, even on the Sabbath day, and told them that unless they would do so, they would become their own enemies.
Now look at that. Mattathias said, well, listen, brother, we're going to have to show you that there was grace before Christ in the New Testament. Mattathias had enough sense to understand that you can defend yourself on the Sabbath. Okay. What good is it if you cannot stand to build your temple back? If you're dead, you're dead. So that was even grace being exercised in the old covenant, under the old covenant. He says, listen, you can join with me, but you all got to be willing to fight on a Sabbath. Why? Think about it. If the Romans and the Grecians know that you don't fight on the Sabbath, they can go and kill you off and not lose one man. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this was war. Now, some people might say, well, this is not a big deal. Why didn't they just celebrate the holy days of Antiochus and his people? Because they understood the connection between their God and the Bible and the Torah and Tanakh holy days. The Torah holy days. They understood that by serving or compromising to the Gentiles, you're now serving another God. See? Now, mind you, brothers and sisters, if they would have compromised, they would have been celebrating Saturnalia and all the other Greeks and Romans holidays, which we call Christmas today. So over 1,000 people, man, woman, and child, were cremated, were killed in a cave, burned alive because they didn't celebrate Christmas. Now think about that. Read.
By observing the law so rigorously, while their adversaries would still assault them on this day, and they would not then defend themselves, and that nothing could then hinder, but they must all perish without fighting. This speech persuaded them, and this rule continues among us to this day.
Till this day. Now, when you get an opportunity, go into the Maccabees, read that whole book 12, the 6th and 7th chapter, because it goes into minute detail on how our priests defended the temple and rebuilt the temple. And that's what this holy day tonight is about. We're going to go straight to the book of Maccabees.
First Maccabees 4, and I'll jump straight to it in verse 36.
So what happened was Judas Maccabees, the Maccabean brothers, the priest, said, listen, we're going to fight off the Gentiles to build our temple back to the Most High. And that's what happened. Read.
36. Then said Judas and his brethren, Behold,
Behold,
our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. Upon this, all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Zion. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate and the altar profaned, and the gates burnt up, and shrubs growing in the court as in a forest, or in one of the mountains, yea, and the priest's chambers poured down, they rent their clothes and made great lamentation, and cast ashes upon their heads, and fell down flat to the ground upon their faces, and blew an alarm with the trumpets, and cried towards heaven. Then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary. So he chose priests of blameless conversation.
First of all, he set out some men to take down the Gentiles who were set up stationed in our temple. He cleansed it first with the people that were actually in the temple operating under the laws of the Gentiles. And then he said, well, let's appoint priests over this temple again. Read.
Such as had pleasure in the law, and cleanse the sanctuary, and bear out the defiled stones into an unclean place. And when, as they consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profane, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them, because the heathen had defiled it. Wherefore they pulled it down, and laid up the stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to show them what should be done with them. Then they took the whole stones according to the law, and built a new altar according to the former, and made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple, and hollowed the courts, and made also new holy vessels. And into the temple they brought the candlestick, and the altar of burnt offerings, and of incense, and the table. And upon the altar they burnt incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlestick they lighted, that they might give light in the temple. Furthermore, they set the loaves upon the table, and spread out the veils, and finished all the works which they had begun to make. Now on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is called the month Caslu,
Go ahead, which is today. Read.
in the 148th year, they rose up betimes in the morning, and offered sacrifices according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings which they had made. Look at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it. Even in that it was dedicated with songs and cisterns and harps.
Songs and what?
And harps.
And harps. So they listen to music. The holy day must be celebrated with music. Read.
And cymbals. Verse 55. Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising the Most High of heaven, who had given them good success. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness, and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praised. praise. And they decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold, and with shields, and the gates and the chambers they renewed, and hanged doors upon them. Thus was there very great gladness among the people, for that the reproach of the heathen was put away. Moreover, Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel ordained that the days of dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year, by the space of 8 days, from the 25th day of the month Casliel, with mirth and gladness. At that time also they builded up the Mount Zion with high walls and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles should come and tread it down, as they had done before. And they set there a garrison to keep it, and fortified Bethsura to preserve it, that the people might have a defense against Idumea.
See that? That's the holy day we're celebrating now, the 10th month and the 25th day. All right? So that's the date today. When the sun go down, that's the 25th day in the 10th month. And mind you, they switched it up because they know the 10th month is what? December. They know that. The 10th month is not the 12th month. It's not the 12th. December is not the 12th month. It's the 10th month. And the 25th day is today, according to the Sabbath cycles of the year. So here's the trickery. They know that the 10th month is December, and the 25th day, they didn't link to Nimrod's day now. So you're celebrating December the 25th and celebrating Nimrod, the virgin child of Semiramis, incarnate Tammuz, the Yule child, the child of the devil. And they're using a day that have nothing to do with, when you look at December 25th, it's not even in cycle of the Sabbath cycle. The 10th month and the 25th day is today, according to the Sabbath cycle. You must count a year through a Sabbath. 52 Sabbaths makes a calendar year each year. 364 days. 360 days and four what they call intercalary days for the changing of seasons. 364. All right. So I wanted to put that out there to show you the dedication. Now, where does this stand today? Well, of course, the temple was destroyed. Let's go to Matthew 24 real quick. After this. Why? Because even after this happened, the Gentiles came again and set up Gentiles, Edomites, as Pharisees in our temple. See? They never stopped. Then Antipas, during Julius Caesar time, was given power. Now Antipas was an Edomite, and then his sons came on the scene that led to who we call Herod the Greek, who y'all call Herod the Great, who looked to kill Christ at birth. This is when Edomites had a stronghold during the time of Christ and the disciples. So now the temple was totally desecrated. Christ was upset. He came there during near the Passover time and seen Gentiles selling like merchants in the temple, selling sacrifices, and Christ looked to beat them out of the temple. This is all the works of the Gentiles. So eventually the temple would need to be destroyed altogether. Now, they tried under Antiochus Epiphanes to destroy the temple, but they accomplished it all together in 70 AD under Vespasian and his son Titus, when they destroyed the temple altogether. Let's read it, Matthew 24:1.
St. Matthew chapter 24, verse 1.
Go ahead.
And Yeshua went out and parted from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple.
Go ahead.
And Yeshua said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, There shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down.
So he was showing the disciples our great temple that was once protected under the Maccabees. Just look at this temple. Not one stone would be left on another that would not be thrown down. Read.
3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?
Because the first sign of Christ's coming would begin at the fall of the temple. So these were all signs that would lead to the coming of Christ. The first sign is that great temple that was rebuilt under the Maccabees get destroyed. That was the first sign. So we must use that as a memorial to understand what is the connection between the temple and our Savior Christ. See? Because why? We cannot make it back through the ancient Old Testament temple anymore. The temple has changed. Let's go here. Let's go to Matthew 27 and 51.
St. Matthew chapter 27, verse 51.
Start at 50. This is during the crucifixion of Christ.
Verse 50. Yeshua, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost.
Yielded up the ghost. He passed. Read.
And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom.
So the veil of the temple was rent from the bottom to the top. Now the veil was the connection between the priest and the Most High. So when Christ was crucified, that veil was ripped. So no longer is this temple a connection between the heavenly anymore. It's just a building now. So when Christ was crucified, that building just became another building. Read.
And the earth did quake, and the rocks rent, and the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose, and came out of the graves after his resurrection, and went into the holy city and appeared unto many.
And see, that's a whole nother story in itself. But there was a witness of the saints who died, that the Most High had rise from the grave and go knock on the doors of people they knew and say, or people, certain people that was living in the areas, and say, listen, Christ have now come. So when Christ went into the earth, he sent back saints. And they rose out of their grave and walked and knocked on the doors of people, which is also a witness in Roman canon. Now, right after that, they fell asleep again. But that was also a testimony that Christ went into Hades, or into what they call the parts of hell, having full power of that realm. We actually went into that last Sunday, actually, in the academy. All right. So now, no longer will we have what you would call a physical temple to worship from anymore. And I know there's a lot of information out there that everyone is focusing on, saying that a third temple have to be built according to some prophecy. But that's not in the Bible. There is no Jewish third temple according to the scriptures that must be built. That's all a diversion. That's a diversion into a Jesuit doctrine that have deceived the Christians. There is no third temple that must be built in Jerusalem for an antichrist. It's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie. Because once Christ was crucified, he went into the heavenly to sacrifice his blood on the heavenly altar. The temple that was from the beginning. Don't forget, the temple in the earth was only in a similitude of the heavenly tabernacle. See? We're the temple now. Let's get that 1 Corinthians 3 and 16. So when we're dedicating the temple, our dedication to the temple is understanding through Christ how to operate with our temple. We are the temple now, not a building. Let's get that in Acts first. So in the memorial and the dedication of the temple, we must understand what our sacrifice is towards the Most High. What we will do with our temple, our vessels. There's no physical temple to build back to the Most High in this earth. Let's read that in Acts 7.
Acts 7 and 48.
Read.
Howbeit, the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands.
The Most High dwell not in temples made with hands. Read.
As saith the prophet, Heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. What house will ye build me?
Exactly. So there's no more physical dedication to the Most High. So when we look at the temple now, we must examine the temple through Christ. Because the temple had been destroyed since 70 AD. The veil had been rent since Christ's sacrifice. See? 1 Corinthians 3 and 16, read it.
1 Corinthians 3:16. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God?
Who's the temple of the Most High?
Know ye not that ye are the temple of God?
Know ye not that we are the temple of the Most High? Those are they who have been cleansed through baptism. That's the temple now. Read.
And that the Spirit of the Most High dwelleth in you.
Go ahead.
If any man defile the temple of the Most High, him shall the Most High destroy.
So defiling our temple is just like what the Gentiles did when they went and destroyed and defiled the temple. The example I can give you on a low level is to serve the gods Antiochus tried to force our priests to serve. To eat the foods that Antiochus tried to force our people to sacrifice on our altars, like the abominable animals. What we put in our bodies is defiling the temple. And how we serve in these bodies can defile the temple. So to keep our temple cleansed, we must do what? We must follow the laws, statutes, and commandments that were established before the fall. That's how we dedicate our temple as a living sacrifice. And that's how we link in the cleansing of the temple with the Maccabees to how we cleanse our temples after Christ. That's the connection. See that? So when you read these stories in Maccabees and look at how the Gentiles went through great lengths to have us defile it, understand they're still doing it today. But it's not a physical building. They have developed a system in which we defile our temples. Okay. By participating in doing the activities and the actions of the Gentile nations who have destroyed us. Okay. So tonight we're going to do a feast. We're going to do music. We're going to have a nice time tonight in remembrance of what our brothers did. The sacrifice that our mothers and children went through in the past to sustain the temple. And how Christ was sacrificed so that we can have another opportunity to build ours. With that, we're going to say shalom. Like I said, it was going to be a strong class, but a short class. So I implore you all, brothers and sisters worldwide, to remember this time and to celebrate tonight, to celebrate the Most High, because that's what's going on in the heavens. Okay? With that, I'm going to say shalom, and I can answer questions for about 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes maximum today, and I'm going to stick with that. And then we're going to have festivities, and I can send this over to Elder and Brother Gabar in New York.